Rangi Sai Lamato, Yerba Jipa, Sloven Chimba, did on number Kundu, Ni Topane, Tepa, Mugujikene, Sondeshea, the Kitchik.
So, in this way, one's root teacher that non-dwell with the Guru Padma Sambhava, to which that one carry through the supplication prayer from one's core of heart with the full devotion and the inclination where one can receive the actual blessing.
So, Sarah Tuma Mebane, Tadibat, Nyamuba, Dunga, Zunzinji, also Tinde, Koal, Dungale.
So we all are somehow from beginningless lifetime that being just wandering in the suffering of samsara because of one's the five main poisons, the afflictive emotions, and then at the same time the dualistic mind that we are just kind of experiencing so much of suffering in the samsara.
Dungarte rongi lila, penwi ne kasu, dungarte ndapa suti ya marete, mena koro lege, drupsadi, dungarte le, dromatu basi, ne de yogateres.
So as we experience all this kind of suffering within this our just body in this lifetime, even though there is no anyone who wish to experience such kind of suffering, but because of each and every individual their own karma, that which is ripening, so then they could not just avoid, and one have to just purify in that way. So to be completely protected from such kind of suffering is that the object of refuge, the triple gem. So the problem is that in one way we could not have the full confidence into the object of refuge, and besides that how we got so attached to all this samsaric activity and wealth, and because of that we were just being bound into the samsara and could not really liberate.
Yabo tenchiki sonje ko to soyare yenayo dendeji en di chen lo de keti to mantrba tembo je dugu ajire de basi lo de tembo je lutu yade be mare kangares.
So in generally it has been explained that if one wish or desire, it is even possible that one can attain enlightenment within a week time, but that which means where one need to have completely stabilized one's mind with a kind of single-pointed sense of just meditation, and on the other hand, that when one could not do that, then it seems difficult. So all the time it is important to have a very relaxed and stable mind. So engaging into these actual dharma practices is mainly dependent on our mind. There is no anything that externally just depend upon. So you all, in a way, just as you engage into these dharma practices, it is always try to be very firm and stable mind.
rinpache yu tungres.
So in this way, if one have a very stable mind and then a kind of sense of full devotion and the inclination and the faith, and according to that, if one engage into these dharma practices, then of course, naturally, stages by stages, one can receive all this, blessing within one's being.
야보다 레테 얘는 배샤라 마테나 시송 샤송을 노래마도 벤토를 가야만.
So as you receive all these teachings, then of course some of you that try to just have all those notes, and of course it is good, but if one doesn't engage into practice and doesn't look into it to remind oneself, then it is like collecting the just bird's nest.
자롱소 이제 최해 야바데 링어 예술라 마치 바지 줌바 냐솔롱도 네버데디 토그레스.
So all these teachings, whatever it is been given, if you try to just mingle with your body, speech, mind, in all the time, if you maintain in that way, then according to that one could have all these realizations and experiences.
배자는 뭐지 뜻나 야보다 빼래 되나요? 성지지 성락 가세는 가세 여래 되나 가세 야야게 봐도 따뜻하면 왔어.
So of course there are just the piles and piles of those teachings, and even just kind of making notes and writing down, but still somehow one doesn't have time to look into it or to study.
최종 모뉴 가세지 시나오 롱기 센토도니 준리바실레 냥슬라야데 기치아레스.
So how much one could to understand whether it is a great deal or just little, however it is just important to really apply into practice within one's being. So just being, having a kind of like a big mouth and a kind of wise mouth, it doesn't really benefit. What we need to tame is tame our mind and not the just mouth. So even we want to attain enlightenment, we should attain enlightenment through the realization of our mind, not with our mouth. So how much oneself have a skillful or wise mouth that not necessarily one can attain enlightenment. So as long as one could to tame one's mind, that is somehow that is subdued and well-tamed mind, then there is the possibility one can attain, enlightenment. So that is why in all aspect and all the time, that it is very important to watch one's body, speech, mind, and moreover that mind, that what it is thinking and so forth, and just remind oneself to watch all the time. So then this time, during our 1 month retreat time, that all those practices like the common, the Ngento teachings and then uncommon Ngento teachings, those are anyway just completed.
what children to pursue. General Kisano don't ye. They're also Julan, they teach us.
And then all those teachings were given by the Khenpos, and you have just properly listened, and then it is important to just apply into one's practice.
As you Khenpo don't teach. Meiji Khenpo Mari, Daiji Khenpo here,
these our Khenpos are not just only named, that they are just the name as a meaning, and they are well educated.
Khenpo tenanji tuju ina chugi mat durle yabore ne yabachire mado yemubatu ngado tembachi maris.
And their just minds are somehow just tamed, and hope that there is no any afflictive emotions.
Yeah, indeed, the channel to come on children soon. The channel to the neon shade. What is Carvazon Morris?
So it is just fortunate that you could engage into all these dharma practices as you have listened to these teachings, whatever it has been taught to you.
Kadi now also Lord Regan the Chamenda was yelling. Magina, Jogman to the Yayong, Trabato the Land Young, the Camboton the Shan, the Cashisum, what and not also land and loyalty. That you said, Boris.
So, and also it is very fortunate that we all be just here, that even myself just come here, and with all my monks and with the Khenpos, and then we be here for the retreat and engaging into dharma practice. It is just still very fortunate time. So, however, just it is very difficult to that one could to lead oneself, whether within this lifetime or even the next lifetime. So within this world, whatsoever this material wealth and all other conditions, not necessarily one have to be just worried about, by some means, it can be just be, completed.
So, Mahoban says, Shimash, Tarvatan to Chimbilante, Kagagilane, she drew to us, so our main responsibility and the most important part is that just looking for the next life through which we could do all these practices, that we can be liberated and then attain complete enlightenment to benefit beings. And within this world, whatsoever just accumulations of wealth and so all other kind of mundane activity is more or less accumulating lots of negativity. So, for example, like even in the past, there are all these great bodhisattvas and great masters that within Nyingma and so forth, that who are just perfected. So even all those great masters, that whether they are alive or even they just
pass away in parinirvana. However, that just all their activity is just to benefit all other sentient beings, and in that way they just lived and passed away. So there is no any of them who are just kind of collecting all sorts of material wealth. So in that way, it is very important to really engage into the dharma practice properly. So we have to plan and have the basis of this present human rebirth, that where we could just attain liberation, the ultimate liberation, and then the complete enlightenment. So like in these kind of practices, if we just think that we could do maybe in the future, maybe sometimes it is very difficult. So most important is this present kind of form and the support. So then you all that just think very carefully and properly, not to have too much attachment for this present life.
That's it.
So if we look into ourselves, most of us that half of our life has already just exhausted. So then in the future or in the next life, it is definite that we will just obtain a form. So at that time, then it is important that one may not have to wander in this cyclic existence. So that one has to engage into these dharma practices with that intention that as we have our parents, and that we wish to liberate them from the suffering and lead them to just liberation, and at the same time all the sentient beings, apparently sentient beings, to get rid of the suffering and lead to complete enlightenment.
So
if one just think that one could accumulate lots of great wealth, money, and rank and fame, it is just somehow kind of not benefiting, and it is a kind of mistake. It is also difficult to really, just accomplish in that way, and even we could, accomplish in certain level, but still it is involved so much of negativities. So it is very important, all the time, not to forget the, just Triple Gem and the Guru Pama Sambhava, and then, just doing all these supplication prayers. So there is no anything to just kind of like a boast or just to explain to anybody that, oh, I have done all these kind of, dharma practices.
Sanjay Genji Tantan, this some of Tony Chiji Juluna, take Karisha Pen together.
One have to think of one's own purpose and also the purpose for all other sentient beings, and because of that, one just engage into these dharma practices. Then it is meaningful.
The Dachi lo mubo do tunga yoris, the Mahobana also there's a new tourists, then the tenant say hugely. Show him ever something else over Tila. Need the trouble chicken, Tatuk the art of vegetable, Kadich son not only share the truth.
So this our just 1 month retreat. Within this, there are a whole bunch of you who have been here for a long time, and also that in the future also we will just continue all these practices. So in all the time, it is just very important to have that right intention or motivation to think for the benefit and welfare of all sentient beings with the with great deal of compassion, and also not falling into any kind of partiality and distinction. So, of course, each and every one of us, we have our kind of like families, and then, like a husband and wife and children and so forth, which is also important to have that affection and care and being loving. But when we engage into the dharma practices, then it is more important to think for the welfare of all sentient beings, and just try to have that kind of pure motivation without any distinction. Other than that, if one get too attached with the only ones with the kind of family and so forth, then the practice does not become that much effective. The Buddha's Dharma teaching is just completely based on for the benefit of all sentient beings. There is no anything concentrated for self, just benefit.